too complex to fly. Pilots are no longer needed, but rather computer scientists from MIT. I see it all the time in many products, always seeking to go one unnecessary step further when often old and simpler is far better. Split-second decisions are needed and the complexity creates danger. All of this for great cost yet very little gain. I don't know about you, but I don't want Albert Einstein to be my pilot. I want great flying professionals that are allowed to easily and quickly take control of a plane. So all of that is very Trumpy in a bunch of different ways, and I don't know how much of that is kind of accurate or not in terms of his implications, but it's certainly true that airplanes, like cars, are becoming more technological and less reliant on humans, and actually, generally speaking, I think it's mostly a good thing. That doesn't mean there's no downside. Joining us to talk about the many aspects of this 737 MAX 8 conversation, Jay Ratliff, iHeart Aviation analyst, former executive at Northwest Airlines, and proprietor of jratliff.com. Good morning, Jay. Thanks for being here.
It is my pleasure.
So first, how are Americans to think about the fact that regulators and even airlines around the world are grounding their fleet of 737 MAX 8s, but the FAA is not, and so far American airlines, and I don't mean the company American Airlines, airlines that operate in America are not yet. So are the other people overreacting? Are the Americans underreacting? How do we think about this?
Well, I mean, let's look at it. We've had 346 fatalities in 132 days involving the same type of new aircraft with admitted operational deficiencies that had similar situations with airspeed. And again, neither investigation is anywhere near over. We still have a lot of preliminary data, but it brings up a lot of questions. So the position that you have to take is, okay, we have an issue here. We've lost more people in 132 days in these two crashes than the United States has lost commercially in the last 17 years. So do we take the precaution of saying we're going to err on the side of caution and park these airplanes? And to keep everything in perspective, we're talking about only two airlines that operate this aircraft currently in the United States, American Airlines and Southwest.
Mm-hmm.
Combined, they have like 58 airplanes.
Right.
So we're not talking about thousands of jets here. We're talking about 58 stupid airplanes that the FAA should have ordered earlier in the week. Hey, we're going to ground these until we get these questions answered. The FAA chose not to. That's fine. American Airlines or Southwest, two great airlines, two airlines that continue to say safety comes first. All they have to do is say, you know what? We don't need the FAA. We're going to ground these airplanes. But they don't. Boeing could come forth and say, until we get some of these things fixed, let's do it. But, we can't because we have 4,700 more of these on order. We don't want to freak out some of our customers.
Yeah, that's right. Boeing won't admit that they are the source of the problem.
So we are at a point where long past. Now we have every country in the world pretty much saying, hey, not only can you not operate these, you can't fly them over our airspace. And it is something that, what's the two options I'd prefer? Erring on the side of caution. I've talked to several people that fly these airplanes, the pilots, the captains. And I say, what are your thoughts? And they tell me off the record, Jay, these airplanes should be grounded. They have collectively told their airlines as a group, pilots, flight attendants, even the mechanics who work on them, these airplanes should not be operating right now. And yet we continue to do it. Why? Because profits come before safety. It happens all the time, and I hate to see it. And in the 28 years I've been doing these reports, I've seen it time and time and time again, and it frustrates me every single time.
You mentioned kind of in passing there, and you used the phrase admitted operational deficiencies in this airplane. What are they?
Well, it's basically when this new aircraft came out, it had kind of an advanced system that helped the airplane if the aircraft ever went into a stall. And anytime an aircraft is traveling and goes into a stall, the procedure is the nose goes down, it picks up speed, and it levels out once the normal airflow resumes over the course of the wings. That's what happens when crews encounter a stall. The problem is when you have an airplane that takes off, if this automated system kicks in shortly after takeoff and it goes to point the nose down in a mistake, you don't have time to recover because you're not high enough off the ground. The Boeing is necessitated some additional training as well as a software upgrade that is currently being passed along to airlines. I think they have until the end of April to have everything done, and that is going to be something that they're saying is not something that should cause the airlines to ground the airplane, because simply training the pilots on better how to handle the situation by turning that system off instead of fighting that system is really all that's needed. So, when I say operational deficiencies, that's what I mean. Something that basically, like we had in the Lion Air disaster, you had a flight crew experience that was fighting for control of their aircraft against the automated system, and they lost.
I don't have the headline in front of me, Jay, but yesterday I read a story from CNBC. The headline was something like, FAA says 737 MAX 8 is safe, mandates changes to the planes later in the year.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, and that in itself shows you that it's unbelievable. It frustrates me to no end. Hopefully later today or tomorrow the pressure will mount to the point that the right decision is made, and we basically join the rest of the world in saying we are going to have safety first. Again, 58 planes combined, American and Southwest. It's like 3.5% of their fleet. I can't believe we're having the discussion on whether or not it should be done.
Now, one of the things I talk about with some frequency on the show in other contexts is the idea of regulatory capture, where large regulatory agencies, who I mostly don't like too much, basically become vassals of the industries that they are supposed to regulate, because they hang out with them all the time and they go to parties with them, and some of the bureaucrats hope to get much higher paying jobs in the industry later on. Do you think there's a possibility that Boeing has to any degree captured the FAA, or do you think the FAA is really, in their minds, just standing by their normal operating procedures, such as they lay out in a statement where they say, our review shows no systemic performance issues and provides no basis to order grounding the aircraft?
Well, we don't know if it's pressure from Boeing. We don't know if it's direct or indirect pressure from the airlines. We don't know if it's just a matter of being stubborn, saying that we trust these airplanes, but we're not going to have other countries telling us what to do. But I could care less what the motivations are. And I think really right now the only saving grace we have is going to be the president stepping in saying, look, these things have to be grounded, because obviously airlines are not going to do it because they want to keep those airplanes in their fleet making money, and Boeing's not going to do it. The FAA is not going to do it. So hopefully President Trump will basically say, folks, if no one else is going to protect the passengers flying on these airplanes, I will do it. Ground those airplanes now. And
if Jay Ratliff were in charge of the FAA, it sounds like you would ground them.
Oh, we'd have been the first country to do it. Once the airplane crashed and we started to see some of the vertical speed issues from some of the external data, there have been no question that's exactly what would have taken place.
Jay Ratliff, iHeart Aviation analyst, former executive at Northwest Airlines. Check out his website at jratliff.com. Jay, thanks for your expertise as always, and thanks for your time.
Believe me, it's my pleasure. Have a good day.
Okay, you too. I think one of the interesting